Coming up on UGTV. A special session of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
July 9, 2015, at 5:30 p.m. in the 5th floor conference room for the Administrator's Quarterly Report. Immediately following, there will be an executive session in the 9th floor conference room regarding labor. Roll call. Bynum.
Here.
Walker. Townsend. McKiernan.
Here.
Mugia. Johnson.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Markley.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Philbrook.
Here.
Holland.
Here.
All right, thank you, Commission. This is actually the quarterly report from the first quarter of this year. We were trying to get it on the schedule, I think, earlier. We just had some conflicts came up, and it was an item that just got pushed a couple of times, so it's actually now the second quarter's occurred, but we wanted to get this information out to you. And I think much like the last time we did the quarterly report, it's kind of an evolving process as we go through it. Changed a little bit of the format. I also know that the intent of the commissioners is, as we set measurable goals, that those will factor in, but this is the first quarterly report. Many of those measurable goals were just coming out in the first quarter, and many of them even in the second quarter. So they're not woven into this. I'll start to figure out, maybe I'll have those into the next quarterly report, at least as to what they are, and then move forward. And as Commissioner Kane points out, this quarterly report really packs in the crowd. So good to see you, Marcia.
They're all watching from home, I'm sure.
All right, the first category that I have up here is about public safety. And this just highlights the different involvement, different activities we were doing through the major activities, support to the task force, working for recruitment. Started recruitment for the fire department, did a recruit class for the sheriff's department, memorandum of understanding to address staffing crisis that we had in the juvenile detention center was worked through. Got our fire study underway, working for this target this summer, have it completed. We started the jail study, had a vehicle enforcement blitzes which were underway in the first quarter, and then started a new chief of police. With several of the initiatives that he put in place, they're listed as well. Infrastructure. I don't know that I need to list through each one of these things. This report has been sent to all of you now, so you all have a copy of it in your file that you'll be able to go through and look at your leisure. If you have any questions as you go through it, if you want to come back to myself or any of my staff members on any of these, but we move forward, and I think this was presented to the Commission on the wastewater systems video, so we're moving through that in the stormwater quality education program. So that's an ongoing process that we're doing in the community. Got the ADA sidewalk ramp replacements underway for 2015. Those were mainly in the design stage in that quarter. Work on new biosolids dewatering unit at the pump stations at those locations listed. Sewer extensions done for the Connor Creek construction. They were not done, they were started, moving through that way. Worked on Merriam Lane, continued major road work on our computer models and analysis of sanitary sewers as part of the EPA overflow control program, which is a citywide effort, which is divided up into 3 zones, and that'll be coming back in the fall with the information on that. And we issued a notice of need for South Patrol.
What does that mean exactly?
The notice of need was for the project work to be done on it. And actually this you'll see more information on South Patrol just went out in the agenda package today regarding the property. So you'll get a full update, and you're on that committee, so you'll get that at that meeting in a week and a half. Included a greater project list for your information, so that'll be in your packet if you want to go through that, and you can see the different ones that we initiated in the first quarter of the year. I won't go through each of those here. In terms of customer service, which continues to be a commission priority, I'll note this first one. It's really not one that you see, but we had to replace a 20-year-old timekeeping management system, and that was mainly because it was a shutdown of a system we'd used with Kansas City, Missouri for a number of years. Not necessarily that we are over onto a better system in regard that we moved really it was our public safety areas that recorded under that, but we did have to replace it and put something in place to work and get them shifted over to what the rest of our government works their timekeeping on. Human Resources rolled out all their training. That was something we had demonstrated to you in the last quarter of last year. Well, it was the first quarter of this year when we started rolling out and doing the training through our departments. This was the training we took and the information from KU on, and we are continuing to train throughout this year. Advancements in the Awesome Q and the Auto License Division has progressed well for us. I'll note I was out at the annex the morning after the storm when we had the power outage. It worked well for people. Some chose to use it, look up, they could see that they could come downtown and get in line versus many chose to just stand out there, but others hopped in their car and drove downtown because they could get queued in. So it works that way, or works from people at home when they opt to use it. It works well. And we'll continue to do redevelopment work on 311 operating systems. This is targeted more for completion and activities for our tracking information and reporting that'll come out in the fourth quarter of this year. In other terms of innovation, we developed a system for the district attorney's office that allows his people to use mobile technology when they're serving warrants in the field. So this is a great time saver for them. This is really the efforts of our technology unit working with the DA to come up with how that could be done. Restructuring of departments and services completed. That was overall. I've got a sheet showing on that. 89 community connections were done for Google. This relates back to our Google contracts, so these are all public facilities put in place. Now it started to slow down after this point. It took a while to get up to this and started getting all these different sites connected. 3 more were scheduled to come in. It's taken a little bit longer to move through, and some of them because sites we had located on our original list of like 120 some, they weren't running by, and our contract did not require Google to go run off down a side street to connect them. However, we have had a couple that are within a range where we've asked Google to price them and let us know what it cost if we were to run the additional fiber line down the street to connect into those areas.
Question.
Sure.
What kind of sites? 89 community locations?
The sites we had listed for that range from our public buildings, so ones that we had it out and around. It could be from the Fleet Center, fire station, police headquarters, to schools throughout the community. So that ranged in all the different school districts we have. So when they would run down those areas, they would connect the line that they could come into and hook them up. I would say that was the majority of the different kinds of sites that were there.
So
Libraries were on the list.
So you're saying basically all community type buildings? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Not all, but I mean, all of these were community buildings. Yes, all of these were community buildings. Just asking you guys to turn your microphone on.
Oops, I was trying to hide it.
Why don't we pull that list out for the commissioners and send them a list of what all sites we've connected so they have that information?
Yay, thank you.
And just to stop there for a minute, part of the reason I'm asking is because I was under the impression that our KCK school district had determined that connecting to Google for school buildings was cost prohibitive. And so I'm just curious if school buildings are part of what's been connected. My second piece is that when the Google rollout occurred, you know, my recollection was we were going to connect all of Wyandotte County, or I should say perhaps all of KCK, I'm not sure which. But personally, I'm with a handful of folks where I live that cannot access Google, and Google is telling us will not be able to access. So part of my question is personal, but I do have neighbors continually asking, and of course the answer we keep getting is, we're not coming up your street.
There are a lot of pockets.
Sorry.
All right, couple of questions within that. First, on the community buildings, correct in that not all of the school districts determined that there would be any value gain. They have contracts, they have fiber already running to their facilities. If they're already in a contract that it provides for how they're doing it, the business case scenario, well, wasn't even an in-play school, just putting that together. But for some, they didn't determine there would be as much value. So that all of them got hooked up or not, or some of them just took the fiber line and they're doing some things, but they're not as valuable for it. USD 500, a big entity, many different things. I think they had a pretty good contract as far as what they're doing for fiber. Probably less likely than I think at one time, and I don't know how it worked out in the end, but I talked to the superintendent or principal like at Piper, smaller school district, where they thought it would be very advantageous to them. So I think that varied as to how that would use. Google was not required to go everywhere. There was a number equation that came to it. They did, so it was kind of a loose commitment to come and say they would connect throughout, but they had to have a certain number of houses and such like that that were ready to hook on before they would go into each area, and that's where the stopping point.
That's not true either, because I specifically told them I would go through all of Morris and that I could get them whatever number of signatures they wanted, and they said it doesn't matter, we will not come there. So, but they did come to part of Morris after I pestered them for 2 years, so part of my Morris is covered now, but the other part is not, and they said it never will be. So,
And that's the answer I basically got as well, because it's Morris and where I live are more rural. And so they came halfway up my road and stopped. And me and several others live on the other half of the road. And, you know, we would take full advantage of this. But anyway, I keep asking as well, so I probably won't stop asking.
Okay.
Well, I don't have them hooked up. I'm never going to have them hooked up. And they took a whole bunch of their trash and took it around the corner and dumped it. And when I asked the guy what he was doing, he responded with, like, who are you? And then we had a little bit of trouble. And I don't think they told us the truth, and that they didn't deliver what they were going to deliver. In fact, they damaged quite a few of the yards when they were doing it. And I still think that the local people could have performed that work. It would have been union made. But I don't think they've been as good a partner to them as what we thought they were going to be. And that's frustrating for me. You know, and I'll never have them, because when I called to log a complaint with the lady that represents them, she said, well, what do you want me to do? Well, I don't know what I want you to do, but I know what you're going to do. You know, and we don't need business in here trashing our neighborhood when they're going to deliver something, and then they didn't deliver the whole package, such as Commissioner Markley's talking about. So I'm still frustrated with them, and I'll never have them.
Next item, reporting on, is we started the procurement of a new agenda management software. We're going through that stage with now how we'll go about putting that in place, and that'll be for use later in the year. I don't know for sure what the timeline is off that top of my head. Probably could have my clerk report on it, but I won't call her out now. Open data dashboard reporting for departments. We started that with the technology unit. I think this will be something as a management tool as we get this all figured out, and we'll be able to see projects listed. We'll be able to see where they are in status as we get that figured out. And that's both on the front end and the back end. So it's not only the tool, but it's getting all the departments to be able to enter the data or have the data as they turn it in that's linked right into this so we can see it. Continue our installation of our new computer-aided dispatch system, which is really revolutionary changes from the last system, which was installed in 1997. This will be a great assistance for public safety in that area, but I also think there are some other tools that we'll be able to use in other areas which are kind of dynamic about it, but our first preference is getting everything done from what we need for dispatch. And then service and system and service assessments conducted by the technology department when they are going into different departments. They're taking their project manager in, working through different things that are going on there, and trying to improve their use of technology or the technology tools that we currently have today.
Where does a chameleon come in at? All of that IT? Where does chameleon come into all of that? That's the stuff that the animal control uses.
I would have to look up and see where that.
It's a new IT program.
Yeah, I don't know the
But
answer to that question.
Okay, it would fall under police, I believe, as far as,
Yeah, I don't know if it's related. I don't think it's well, I do not know if it's related at all to the CAD. I don't think so. I think it's its own system, but
all right,
we'll have to report back to you on that.
yeah, well, when we get the head honcho of the IT group, we can talk about it, 'cause
Okay.
we need to do some coordinating.
Just a couple things under economic development here. We finished the U.S. Soccer National Training Center agreement. Back in the first quarter, initiated the process to sell some UG property, included the Legends Movie Theater and Hilton Garden Inn. So we're marketing both of those now and actually have proposals on both of them. And as you've seen on the theater, we came through with the proposed concept as to how we would sell it under that. That still is working, and then we've had proposals come in on the Hilton Garden Inn, and we're working on those. Public levy completion started there, a 300,000 square foot facility down in that location. Here's a list of some other projects that happened or came before the commission for consideration on different aspects of them. As you can see, like the Legends Apartments, not a done deal, but that was one that was brought back before the commission. The other ones have moved forward. In terms of housing, we had building permit increases, highest in 5 years. We started our consultant, or selected our consultant for the 5-year plan. Education, workforce development, economic development staff continues to be working within that and partnering with Wyandotte USD 500, the community college, and MAMTEP and the workforce. And then under multimodal transportation, increase in ridership is probably the key to what's going on there, 27.6%. A lot of that being done with our local buses, working with area transit agencies to provide regional fares, which was key. We actually locked that in, I think, during the last quarter. We were working with them to get that set up, and then it's in the last quarter that our transit director was get that coordinated. So now when you go in and pay your fare here, you can walk on to other buses and across other jurisdictions and keep going. And then we started our K-32 corridor study. Under healthy communities, youth basketball, 454 participants, adult volleyball, and you can just see the list here of each one of these programs that were done under Parks and Recreation. Continuing on that, we had a grant received from General Motors for $5,000 in the health department. Construction of a new recreational trail proceeds, and Latino Health for All. So several grants that were brought forward to the governing body and given approval to proceed with. And the Healthcare Foundation awarded a grant of $56,000 for the 2020 campaign. Information there.
oh, before you go any further, I want to thank whoever I need to for getting those futsal courts done at Welborn Park. They look very nice. We got 2 parks, it's done, 2 of them, so I'm excited. That's great.
Good. Well, those are advancing forward. The 4 that are and I believe I sent you all the update on those last week, but the 4 that we were going in and doing the overlays on over existing courts were the first ones to go after. And then the other 4, they're still in the planning phases with that, or design phases with that, with sporting as to how they'll be done. And as soon as I get timelines, there'll probably be individual timelines. We'll get those out on those.
Anyway, thank you.
Mr. Tobin is my project manager working that, so I'll give him the credit. On On the environment, storms and sanitary, spot repairs, continue to create mitigation plans for compliance according to the EPA consent decree. A few big hires in personnel. Trenton Fogelson was hired for water pollution control director. While he was an internal promotion, he is someone we hired from the outside a couple of years ago and brought in, and has achieved and really doing good, and right up to the point above him. A point on the EPA consent decree is that was assuming project manager for many of those things, so he has stepped up well and will guide us through many millions of expenditures in that area as we go forward. We hired Kathy Briney as a deputy appraiser, filling a void in that area. Ms. Munt was hired as assistant county administrator, and Terry Breckhausen in public health. So, as has been the case since I've been the county administrator, we had quite a few vacancies at the director level, and continued to fill those, and I feel like we're building a very good team. He was interim? Yes, he was interim. This is the organizational chart that I'd presented earlier in the year, so that was put in play. Leading out, it's in the other documents that you should have too. Under finance, financial strategy presented to the commission on 1/22, which you've been able to work with strategic planning. Completed our annual bond and note sale, which is always a major achievement for our finance department. Many approvals come through the governing body, but there are many hours spent by Lou Levin and his team working on this before it ever gets before you. Public hearing, which was conducted for the commission. Did our CAFR, first and second quarter of 2015. Finance was directly responsible working to receive the KC's land payment and work through that deal, that property tax settlement that was done with that organization. We began our star bond financing for the U.S. Soccer and Schlitter bond, which is actually leading up to where we're at tonight, which will be on your agenda. So it shows you any of these star bond financing projects take a fair amount of time to work through and get to the point where you can actually do final approval of them. And our CDB subcommittee held April 28th. Guess that's a little out of that quarter. I can put that on next report too.
We met in that quarter too.
We'll be able to list a whole bunch of them for that one.
We've been meetings at the dawn of time, so.
Just under the area commission communication, which is one of the other notes in the goals for me. We've got the weekly notes, emergency notification. I think we utilized it 25 times to the commissioners during that time frame. Utilized the on-threes, individual commissioner meetings held, and Hollywood grant process started, and RFP activity updates. That concludes the quarterly report. I know I kind of flew through this fast, but I know we kind of went that way. It's to get the information in front of you so you have it. You'll have this report, as I said. If you want to spend more time with it and look through it, if you have any other questions, or if you have any other questions tonight, we'll be happy to address them. With that, Mayor, I would recommend that we move to an executive session regarding labor, and I would also like to add litigation to that, so we can give you a brief update there as well. Can we get 40?
All right, I'll entertain a motion for 40 minutes for executive session for labor and litigation.
So moved.
Second. It will start at 6 o'clock. We'll take some time to transition up, but it will start at 6 and go for 40 minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we are in executive session.